The number one mistake is not having a strategy for your social media that is driven by your actual offerings. Well, hello, my beautiful friend. Back by popular demand, I am doing another Q&A style episode where I am answering questions that have come in either from clients or listeners like yourself to dive into. So I'm just going to do like fast action style, read off the questions and go through them as well too. So if you are interested in submitting a question for one of these Q&A type of episodes, you can email us over at hello@heathertervine.com and just put into the subject line podcast question or podcast submission. And then my team will collect those for the next Q&A. And I may potentially read your question on air. So the first question is a really good one. What would you focus on first if you were opening a new practice or med spa today? And I know the answer to this. I would focus on creating a concept. And what I mean by this is when you think about, there is a restaurateur who's actually based, he's in Phoenix, Scottsdale, in my area, actually. His name is Sam Fox, and he has a company called Fox Restaurant Concepts. Okay. And so and we've seen this in the restaurant industry is a lot more mature than our industry. And you wouldn't just launch a restaurant with a bunch of random menu items from all over the world, right? Like most restaurants aren't that way. They are launched with a concept in mind. And so if I were to launch a practice or a med spa, I would think like, what is my concept? So that I am actually focused on either a certain type of human that I am serving, right? Like limiting who I'm building that practice or med spa around, or a certain type of outcome or benefit that I am serving. So for example, I might double down on the menopausal woman, right? So it doesn't mean that I just have a dry bar equivalent type of concept, because that's very much a concept type of hair salon where they only do blowouts, right? It doesn't have to be concept in the sense like you only do talks, right? But if you think about building an actual identity around who it is that you serve. And I think what happens oftentimes is the unique value proposition gets lost when you open up your practices and clinics to where the only unique value proposition is just like, I'm going to open up an aesthetic practice and I'm going to have the best technology and the best products, and we're going to be really experts at what we do. And, historically, that has been enough for many of you to be really successful. Where I really see the future of the industry going is that you're going to see more concepts be utilized and more like having really specific positioning. And so this is why I love having a signature menu, obviously, as well, too, is because it makes you more like a concept type of practice or clinic. So I would obviously build an irresistible offer suite that was, and I would have it branded named to my med spa practice. So I would definitely start from day one with a signature menu of packages and what have you that were based on my concept. The signature, if I had a membership, I would have a signature membership, and everything about my menu and my membership would all be designed to help the one human, so let's use the menopausal woman, get outstanding aesthetic outcomes, okay? And I would position it around that transformation that I knew that premium person was looking to have, right? They're looking for the transformation. They're not just looking for the cheapest IPL or Tox or microneedling place in town. Okay. And then I would brand and name everything, right? So I would have my consults would be branded and named to me. My menu items would be branded and named to me. I would have my marketing would all be, I would come up with unique methodologies. I'm assuming that if I'm doing this, that I'm a clinical expert already. Okay. And so I would really want to double down on my clinical expertise and come up with unique frameworks and methods and what have you as well too, that are, again, wait for it, branded to me, right? And so when I say branded to you, I don't mean that they have to have your med spa's brand name in the actual name, although sometimes that can work too. But if you look at me, like I have very unique frameworks and methodologies, and I actually have an intellectual property attorney that, I have trademarks pending on the med spa CEO, on my cares consult process. I have all of my stuff is copyrighted and what have you. When you think about building a brand, so that is what I would double down on. I would double down on having a concept, a brand, having everything be branded and unique, if you will, to me, so that I have that positioning to be able to price myself well, to really deliver transformation, not just be a place that has services as well. Okay, so next question is, what's your number one mindset shift that helped you scale faster? Okay, so if I were to limit it to one mindset shift that I have had over the years that has served me the most, it would probably be this idea of stacking failures faster. Okay, this idea that that it isn't the idea that you are trying to create a bunch of success sooner. It's the idea that you are going to strategically have to stack failures in order to actually know what's going to create the success. And we're not raised to think this way, right? Like we literally are raised with a traditional education system that tells us that, we want to get an A and not get an F. Like failing is bad and wrong. And what I discovered is that when you are trying to always get the A in business, when you are literally brand new at many of the skill sets that you will need to actually be effective in business, because everybody who's never had a business before, which is every new business owner, doesn't have the skill sets to do certain things well. And so once I gave myself sort of the freedom and the liberty to really think about, it's just a shift in that thinking that like I'm stacking failures. Now, this doesn't mean I'm intentionally trying to do things badly, but once I understood that the feedback from taking action would help me get to that A product faster. Like I have to have the F's and the D's and the C's, right? Or even the like B- work, right? Brooke Castillo has this, B- work. And she's like, if you are waiting until it's a B plus A, you've waited too long. Like you need to have the B- work. It's actually how you get better faster. So if I was to, nail it down to one sort of change in my thinking that has had the biggest impact on me. And if you were, even for those of you who have been following me for a while, or even within the last year, if you've seen how quickly I have actually launched new things in the last year, you will see like the reason why I've been able to launch and launch new things so much faster is because I am not trying to avoid failing. Okay. So when you're trying to avoid failing, instead of just like taking action rapidly to get feedback to improve something, when you're trying to avoid failing, it changes how you approach what you're doing, right? When you give yourself the liberty to say, I'm going for the thing, and yes, of course, I'm going to trip and I'm going to fall as I run towards it, you give yourself the liberty to make mistakes, but you actually get through the iterations that you need to faster as well too. So that would be the number one mindset shift that once I really actually really believed that, right? Because we hear that all the time, right? And it may not be that you even use the word failure, right? Because failure is like subjective as well too. All right. So the next question is, how do you suggest getting team buy-in when launching new treatments or packages? Okay. So I have a lot to say on this because basically the work we do with our clients, especially inside of MSA, is very much like we're helping their team members adopt the new menu and the new consult process and all of that jazz as well too. And so getting team buy-in is very critical. So first, my philosophy is we have what I like to call a positive accountability system. Okay. So it means we want to keep our team members accountable, but we also want to do it in a positive way and really understand the psychology behind why they might have resistance to whatever the new thing is. Okay. So when you're first launching new technology and you're bringing it in and all of your providers have no experience on that technology, it takes a hot minute for folks to be able to, it's not even really buy-in. They might even be excited that you're bringing in the new technology because they believe in how it's going to be able to deliver better results and what have you for whatever it is that it does. But your confidence when you're bringing in something new, if you don't have a lot of experience actually being the technician on that thing, there's a learning curve, right? Every time you bring in something new. Okay. And this is true for if you bring in new technology or if we're helping you launch new packages and offers and what have you as well. It takes a minute for them to, learn how to sell more premium things if they've only ever sold like low ticket a la carte things, right? And so I really like if you are able to involve them in the process and involve them in when it makes sense. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to pull them. That's not what I'm talking about. You're not getting permission from them, but the sooner you let them know your thinking behind why you are going to make a certain decision, the more they will have natural psychological buy-in to whatever that thing is. Okay, so again, you're not looking for their approval. But if you can have them participate, for example, in brainstorming new menu items, if you will, you're like, hey, here's the initial draft of these packages that, Heather helped me put together. And, what do you think? Like, I'd love to get your insight on this X, Y, and Z. These are the people, and giving them like the clear framework of why, what have you, it can get that psychological buy-in easier for them to do. The other thing I would say is that part of the reason why team members may not have buy-in is usually a breakdown in communication. There may not be a lot of clarity on the thought process and the why behind something. And sure, you could say, I'm the CEO and the leader, and I don't need permission to do anything, and this is what we're doing, and I'm the captain of the ship. And you're either on the ship. And I actually believe that to a degree. But you can also be the captain of the ship and the energy can be like, hey, this is the direction we're taking this ship. But here, let me explain to you why I think this is going to be an incredible move for our patients and our clients and for ultimately you and us and what we're doing. This is the vision that I have. The more buy-in you can get with your team on the vision, the more you have clarity on the vision and the why behind your doing things, the more easily it will be to actually get team members to buy into whatever it is that you're trying to get them to buy into. I think that a lot of times we don't actually have clarity on what our vision is. And so we're sometimes just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And your team members are onto that. And so if you've done a lot of throwing spaghetti at the walls to see what is going to stick, and they've gone through a lot of that experience with you, then they've lost trust in some of your decision making. And so then they may have a lot of reservations when you're, taking them into a new direction. And it's just understanding that. So if you can effectively communicate like why and the vision, I think the more you can get buy-in with your team members, the more easier your team will actually follow suit as well too. Because when you share your thought process behind it, and loop them in, the sooner you loop them in, the more they feel like they are part of the process, even if you've already made the decision on it as well. Okay, what's the number one mistake med spas or practices make when it comes to social media? It's a great question. Okay. I would say, the number one mistake is not having a strategy for your social media that is driven by your actual offerings. Okay. And so it's a lot of social media content that is based on kind of content pillars that are based on maybe personality content and all of these things that make sense for like an influencer, like a lifestyle influencer to have, but not really a small business owner that's trying to build authority and expertise. And so the biggest mistake I see med spas and practices make is that they have not intentionally created a roadmap from their social media content to their specific offerings so that they are pulling and converting way more of their followers into actually clients and patients that book appointments, and also using the social media to actually sell, because a lot of your followers are going to be current clients and patients as well too. So there seems to be this like disconnect sometimes. And so the biggest mistake I would say is like seeing your social media as a silo that isn't interconnected to the results and the transformations that you actually provide, and then not back-end engineering the content to have that flow so that it threads back to your unique offers. It's something like with authority funnels and marketing funnels that I've been preaching in this industry for years, but it's how you're able to really have an intentional flow. And so that's the number one mistake that I see folks make. And it's because there is benefit to having just basic curb appeal content that many of you know that you need to have. And by curb appeal content, I mean, the content that showcases you, it showcases that you have a pretty clinic and with real humans, and answers some of those initial questions that once somebody has discovered you, that they're going to expect to see when they come over and check you out on your social media. But, that's just the basics, level one, if you will. We want to really make sure that your social media is like an engine that drives back to your offers. And so that would be the biggest mistake that I see folks make with their social media. All right, my friend. Those were the questions that my team chose for this Q&A episode. Like I said, if you want to potentially have your question shared on one of these upcoming Q&A episodes, email us over at hello@heathertrevine.com and let us know, and your question may end up on a future episode. That's what I have for you this week, my friend. I will see you next week. Take care.